Okay, good morning. We are on Tuf Mem Daled Sif Vav. So we're talking about Shabbos, Erev Pesach, which falls out on Shabbos. So Afavi Shlo Yishar HaChametz V'Bayis Achas Su'udas Shacharis. Even though we already said that you were only going to leave over a minimal amount of challah so that you could make the evening meal and the morning meal, so you should already not really have any chametz. You still need to do a bitul because it's still Erev Pesach, and you should probably do it at the same time as always, which means within the 5th hour after it is Asr Ba'achila Midrabanan, but still Mutar Bahana, that's when you should do the bitul. Zion. Haholech biyom arba asr l'dvar mitzvah. If you're going on the 14th, which is Shabbos, you're going to a dvar mitzvah. You're going lomel espeno. You're about to do bris milah for your child. Olach ostudas erison beveis chamav. Or you're going to go to a vart, or even a tnaim, where you're the chassan. And you remembered that you have chametz in your house, and it's still early in the day. So if you can go back to your house and do a biur, destroy this chametz that you know about, and then continue to the vart or to the milah, then you're required to do that because there's a mitzvah chachamim to do a biur. V'imlav, if there's not enough time for you to be able to do that, yivatlena belibo, then you can just do a bitul. And if you just do the bitul, then you're covered. And we allow you to do that because the mitzvah biur is a mitzvah chachamim, and the chachamim were able to say that in efshalakayim shnehem, they're going to remove their mitzvah of biur when you are osik in another mitzvah. But it has to be, a mitzvah that it's efshal otherwise they continue to keep their mitzvah there. If you're going to do an emergency, you're going to save something from an emergency. You're going to save someone from getting, drowned by a river that's overflowing its banks, or from a fire, or from a band of robbers, or worse. So then, Yivatlena Belibo Velo Yachzor Afil Yeshos. Then you just do the bitul, and you don't go back. Even if you calculate that you can do both, we don't want you taking the chance. We don't want you to have to miscalculate. They'll just say, just be osek in hatzalos nafashas and saving people. I don't know if this applies to saving property, but you should definitely don't even try to do to go back and do the biur. Just do the bitul, even if you think that there's enough time. However, if you're just going for a dvar rishus, and many things count as a dvar rishus. For example, even if you're going to learn with your rebbe. He's saying that is a tzarech atzmo. The Mishnah Biur says that even that would be a tzarech atzmo. That would be It's only a physical mitzvah. Yeah, even if he's going to learn by his rebbe, it's considered a dvar rishus regarding the mitzvah of biur, because we're talking about any physical mitzvah that you have to do, but not learning. And I'll read exactly from the Mishnah Biur. V'atam lefi shemas hamitzvah hu gadol mehal limud afilu mitzvah derabanan k'shi efshar l'kam mitzvah l'idei acherim. So anything short of a mitzvah that you have to do now, yachzor miyad, then you have to go back and do the mitzvah biur of the chachamim. Ad kamahu chozer, but on how much do you have to go back and do the mitzvah biur? And this is going back on all of the cases we saw in this sif. Ad kabetza, only up until a kabetza, even though Generally, the shear is a kazayas. Here they say until a kabetza, you don't have to go back. Again, they're not gonna be matriach you if it's less than a kabetza. Now we point out that all of this is talking about still within the 5th hour, because once the 6th hour starts, it becomes asa midrabanan, and you have no choice. You have to go back. In every one of these cases, you would have to go back and destroy it, because you're being over on Bal Yirah, Bal Yimatzeh on every second. And so any mitzvah is not going to be docha, a lav of Bal Yirah, Bal Yimatzeh, except for one, which is, we see in the Mishnah Biur, except for Meis Mitzvah. Because Gol Kavod Habrius, you would go ahead and do the Meis Mitzvah, and then do the Biur, even if it's after the Zman Isser. Isser Hana. Ches. Haislo Isa B'Veso, V'Utarad B'Makam Acher. If he has a dough, now this could be even after the Zman Isser, even the Zman Isser Daraisa, right? So it's now Asr Bahana Midaraisa, and you have a dough that's rising, and you're afraid it's going to turn into chametz. You have 18 minutes, possibly. And he's busy. He can't go destroy it. V'yari shema tachmetz. He's afraid it's going to turn into chametz. Mavatla belibo kadam shtachmetz. So now here, even if it's after the zman isser hana, afilu midaraisa, it's enough for you to be mevatel because there is no chametz here yet. It's about to become chametz, but meanwhile it's not. So if you mevatel this item before it becomes chametz, a machshavit kiklum, and so then you're yotze. You did what you're supposed to do. But once it already turned into chametz, ain't a bitul mol. The bitul isn't even going to help. You can't be mevatel something once it's already asabana. It's not yours to be mevatel it. So ain't a bitul mol. Emhu achas manisira. Once it becomes asar bahana, then you would have to actually destroy it. And now comes the next siman as how we actually destroy chametz. So taf mem hey din biur chametz avo gimel sifim ketzad biur chametz. How do you biur? Sarfa. The best way to get rid of chametz is to burn it. O poro v'zor laruach, or you crumble it up and you throw it to the wind, and all the dust-like particles get spread out to the wind. O zorko layam, or you throw it into the sea. Now, interestingly, throwing it into the sea doesn't say that you poro first. So the Mishnah Biur points out that that's talking about where it's a yam, and it's talking about the kind of chametz that it will get broken up, it will get destroyed in the state that you're doing, so then you don't have to. But in many cases, even throwing it into water, you're going to have to crumble it up first. We're going to see. V'maya chametz kasha, v'enayam machatcho b'mehera, where the ocean is not going to break it up quickly. And then even here too, you have to first crumble it up into small crumbs and then throw it into the sea. I'm sorry? Why is it that it has to be crumbled up? So we're going to get into biur versus mafkir. Okay, so the throwing into the river or into the yam that we're dealing with here is a form of biur. So being mafkir, that has its own set of rules. Being mafkir, you can only do, first of all, it has to be in a public place. It can't be yorshus. We're going to see that in a bit. And it has to be still the zman heter. We were talking about in the previous siman, there are times when you're doing biur after it's already asr. So these forms are things that you do possibly even after it's already asr. But you're right. If you're just going to throw it into the ocean as a form of being mafkir, you wouldn't have to crumble it up. Clear?
If you throw your pasta into the ocean, the Torah's
mafkir,
that's not then that's not okay. And but if throwing the Torah's Biur, it is the other way around.
I don't think your thought matters that much. If it's
unbelievable, I mean that's besides maybe Bitul is hefker.
I'm sorry.
Maybe Bitul is hefker. I'm confused.
You can throw out chametz that you have in a public place while it's still. We're going to see this in upcoming seifim, right? You can be mafker your chametz in a makom that is publicly accessible, and you're not over bal yirah bal yamatzeh anymore. If you did it during the zman heter, once it's already asur b'hana, that doesn't work. Okay, then you have to do biur. So now doing biur could work, throwing it into the ocean if the ocean is going to destroy it. But if it's a very tough, very hard kind of chametz that it would take, I don't know, a week for it to actually dissolve and be destroyed, then that's not enough. You would have to first crumble it so that it would dissolve and be destroyed faster. One other point I want to make here about when to crumble it, when not, throwing it into a toilet, into something where it cannot be recovered afterwards. So then also you don't have to crumble it up, because already now that it hit the toilet, it's not going to be retrievable and edible. In those days, the toilets were, open pits, and if you wouldn't be able to do, even in such a case where you don't have to crumble it up, if you're putting it in, and if there's a pig right there that he's about to eat it, so then you would still have to crumble it up, because you can't have an animal have an directly if you're doing this biur. You're feeding this other thing to an animal. But if you throw it, even in those days where it would be an open pit, and it's likely that a pig would come later and eat it, that's okay. It's just that you can't feed it biyadayim to the pig. Okay, so we now understand that sometimes you have to crumble it up, and sometimes you're not required to. If it's going to be very kosher, you would have to crumble it up and throw it into the ocean. Hagav, minig l'sarfo. The minig is that when you have to do real biur, that or when you want to be mekayim mitzvos biur, which everyone should try to be mekayim, minig l'sarfo. That the minig is always to burn it. V'tov l'sarfo bayom. It's good to burn it in daytime. Again, we're talking about what happens if you found it after the Zman is, what happens if you found it on Yantav. So generally you should try to burn it during the daytime. Dumya denosar, shayar nisraf bayom. Just like nosar, which we have a chi of burning midoraisa, we find by nosar. They used to burn it during the daytime. If you want to be mekayim mitzvos biur by burning it leil lebedika, kidei shelo yigrenu chulda, because you're afraid that maybe a weasel will come, some other animal, and drag it off, or shas biyado. You're allowed to, because the kiyum of the mitzvahs biur can be done anytime within 30 days prior to Pesach. So you would be mekayim mitzvahs biur even if you were to do it at night. However, the minig is that's a good thing to burn it during the day. Specifically, after it's asur ba'achila, but still mutar b'hana midrabanan. That's when you really should be doing the biur. We're going to get into some caveats about what happens when it's being burnt after that. So beis. Then the son of Yehudi kam shashishis. What if you gave your chametz to a guy before the 6th hour, meaning it's still within the 5th hour, so it's asur b'achila but mutar b'hana afilu midrabanan, eno tzarich levayar. So then you don't have to do biur on that chametz because it's not yours. V'msarfa kadam shashishis. If you burnt it before the 6th hour started, you are allowed to use these coal, these ashes that are left over, because it never became asur b'hana. You burnt it, you did what you were supposed to do before it became asur b'hana. So it's not coals of something which is asur b'hana. So then you can use it even on Pesach, because it's also not chametz. So you're not being nana from chametz, and you're not being nana from something which is asur b'hana. However, if you did the burning of the chametz from the beginning of the 6th hour, since it's already asa bahana, you can't use its heat. You can't use it for cooking. You can't use the ashes for other things that they used to use ashes for, except for a devar mitzvah, possibly. We'll see. Then bishel afa, and if you did use these coals, which were burnt after it was asa bahana, osa pas osa tashel asurim. That bread that was baked with these asa bahana coals, or that food that was cooked, are asar. You're not allowed to eat them. Asa bahana, you're not allowed to have any hana from them. V'chein hapacham shelo asurim bahana. The coals are asa bahana, hol israfo achar shen bahana, because they retain their isar hana. Gimel. Before Zman Isser, you're allowed to be mafkir. Here, this sif is talking about being mafkir rather than doing biur. And you're allowed to throw it in a place that the ravens are commonly found there, with the assumption that the ravens are going to eat it. Now, we saw in Tuf Lamed Gimel, I think, that this whole sif, you have to be careful as to whether you're throwing it into your own yard or you're throwing it into a public yard. So, if you found it afterwards, after you threw it beforehand, you were mafkir, you threw it into a place where the arvim are found, and we're going to explain that right now he's talking about into your own yard. And then later you find out that the ravens didn't actually eat it. Hefker, meaning hefker in the sense that it's open to the ravens, not mamish hefker like in a public garbage. Then you can't leave it there. You would now have to destroy it because you thought that the ravens were going to eat it, but they didn't. Now you have to do a biur. Again, this is talking about in your own yard. But if you were a mafkir before the Zman Isser in a public place, you would not have to destroy it. What happens if you did the bedika and you didn't find anything? So he says you should try to still do biur. You still have mitzvahs chacham of biur chametz. So burn the kli that you used to search for the chametz. The standard bedikas chametz kit comes with a feather, a candle, and a wooden spoon. Burn the wooden spoon. So that you shouldn't forget. It shouldn't be lost. The mitzvah of actually doing biur. Let's start. Taf Mem Vav. Mi shemotzi chametz b'soch hamod avo dalat sifim. Aleph. Hamod. Yes.
Burning that kli is only in a situation where you don't have chametz.
You don't have any chametz. Yeah.
So if you do have chametz,
burn that. Yeah. Correct. Aleph. Hamotzi chametz b'veiso. Someone who finds chametz in his house on Pesach, so if it's chol hamoed, he needs to take it out and burn it right away. Are you allowed to daven first? I'm not sure. It's not discussed. I mean, he says v'yaranam, but yeah, don't just burn it. Why? Because there's chashash that maybe you'll come to eat it, and other solutions are not going to work on chol hamoed. If you can burn it, so burn it. We're afraid that someone might come to eat it. If it's Yom Tov, so then cover it over with a kli until nighttime, and then burn it. Or one of the other forms. Again, burning is the primary form and the suggested form, but we saw that there were other ways also. And we're going to explain why you kofalav kli. So the Ramah says, because you can't move it on Yom Tov. Because since it's asar bahana, it's muktzah. It has no value, has no use. You can't use it for anything. So that's the classic case of muktzah on Yom Tov. Gam l'safar b'makomo asar. Even burning it in its place is also asar. And we're going to see that the Mishnah Berurah comes up with many other solutions, and there are many other minhagim. You can ask a guy to come and burn it. That should work. That would be a shvus to shvus b'makom mitzvah. Right? The worst thing that's happening is you're allowed to cook on Yontif. Right? So it's a mitoch, and you're asking a guy to do it. It should be allowed to do that. But he ends up with, the minig is that everybody just agrees with how it was brought in the Gemara, how it's brought stam in the Machaber. Everyone just puts a kli on top of it until after Yontif. What about Yontif Sheni Shel Galios? So there's what to talk about.
We saw before the Dunya Denosa. You're not a buyer coaching and strippers coaching the Yontif.
That could be another motivation as to why they. But the simple answer is kofan alav kli until after Yontif. Beis yesh mi she'omed Yom Tov Sheni dinik chol hamoed l'nyan zeh. There are those that say that Yom Tov Sheni is like chol hamoed, so therefore you should burn it if it's Yom Tov Sheni shel Galios. Or possibly pick it up biyadayim on Yom Tov Sheni and be mefaro v'zarko l'ruach or zarko l'yam. Gimel. Gago shel enu Yehudi shayisamach legago shel Yisrael. If there was a roof, a guy's roof is next to the Jew's roof, then it's galgal chametz migago shel enu Yehudi legago shel Yisrael, and there's the guy's chametz that was on his roof, but it rolls into your roof. You should push it back onto the guy's roof, but not with touching it, because we said that it's muktzah. You should push it back with a reed. Now, hold on a second. Why are you doing any of this? It's the guy's chametz. So the answer is that you're not going to be over bal yirah bal yimatzeh, because it's the guy's chametz. You have no achrayas on it at all, but you still don't want it in your rishus, unless it's behind a wall or something like that. So there's still a chashash that you might come to eat it. So that's why you want to get it back onto the guy's rishus. But you don't want to handle it, because if you're handling it, not because of we're talking about that it's on cholamoid. So you want to push it back. You don't want to handle it because we don't want you touching it. We don't want you to come to eat it. That's the chashash. Well, wait a minute. We said all the other times that you can faro biyad v'zor l'ruach. What do you mean you're not allowed to touch it? So the answer is that when you're picking it up to destroy it, while you're osake in destroying it, we're not afraid that you're going to come to put it into your mouth, because you're going about destroying it. But if you're going to just push it into his yard and you're not destroying it, so then this rashash, if you pick it up to not destroy it, you might come to eat it. So that's the pshat. If it's Shabbos or Yom Tov, so then even using a broomstick to push it back into the guy's roof is also a problem, because that's tiltul min hatzad. So kof alav kli. So then we say just cover it over with the kli. This the asal taltal b'yom tov Shabbos, because you're not allowed to do tiltul on Yom Tov Shabbos. And we'll stop here.